Mr. Gustafson, please bring forth your first witness. Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, it is my privilege to be here before you today to present my client for your consideration. We will be focusing on one aspect of my client so that you can see with your own eyes the merits and flaws of my character so that you can determine for yourself if you would also like to consider my client for your own interests. My client will serve as the first witness. If you prefer, a witness of character. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am here to take you with me back to the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, in a universe in which there is only war. So, Only War, a game that is a property in the Warhammer 40,000 universe owned by Game Workshop. This particular game was created by Fantasy Flight Games and is based on a percentile dice system. Interestingly enough, most of the designs for modern Nerf guns could fit in with a spray paint of black and gunmetal finish to fit in quite well with cosplaying for Warhammer 40k. Some of the designs are actually quite shameless in how similar they are. But we are here to talk about a role-playing game, not dress-up. In Warhammer 40,000's Only War, you take on the role of either Imperial Guardsmen, who are the grunts who go around the universe fighting various monsters from the imaginations of the folks at Games Workshop, from their ubiquitous Cockney-accented orcs, to the unliving Necrons, the devious Eldar, and plenty of other races. And you play the normal Joe Schmo grunts on the front line of this battle. Humanity's greatest asset is the fact that it has trillions and trillions of humans scattered throughout the galaxy, or galaxies, and the Imperium of Man, a universe, or at least star system spanning empire all across the galaxy, summons these people. They tithe civilians and prisoners and whatnot from all these different planets to go and fight the battles of all the hostile alien races, and sometimes put down rebellions and other fun things to keep their Imperium intact. Their greatest force is the Imperial Guard, who again are made up of people from all the million or so planets that the Imperium claims. And as a member of the Guard, you can be a wide variety of backgrounds, tasks that you specialize in, personalities, and so on. It can be very diverse. Generally speaking, your group all comes from the same planet, so there's going to be similarities. They may come from different walks of life. They may obviously have different skills, but your characters are all, without any further choice in the matter, brought into the Imperial Guard and sent off to fight on some distant world for the sake of the Imperium as a whole. The interesting thing about this is that this is not a game with a stated goal of get home, get rich, anything of that nature. Basically, it is a story of survival. Yes, you'll have missions to accomplish, you'll have tasks that you have to do, but above all, your characters mostly just want to survive, or if they have to die, die well. There is a certain amount of fatalism built into the game, but generally your characters are struggling to make it through to the next objective, to keep grimly fighting on, and the odds are ever stacked against you as a guardsman. You have some of the least effective weapons that you may be facing. You usually be outgunned by your enemies. Not outnumbered. That one advantage of the humans is that there's large numbers of your fighting brethren and sisters on all sides. But for what it's worth, it's a pretty nasty fight. And the people who kind of enjoy these games are the ones who enjoy struggling against a dark fate that almost seems inevitable. Also, interestingly enough, there's a certain kind of levity that can form out of Only War as well. You can kind of end up with a MASH type scenario where it's more of a focus on the personalities of the people and how they deal with a terrible reality. Sometimes you can get very kind of almost sweet character blossomings that come out from the source of a horrible situation your characters are in, not expected to survive beyond the first 15 minutes that they arrive on a planet. That can be the average life expectancy of a guardsman, is 15 minutes into a campaign sometimes. It all depends on the front they're on, but we are going to be making a character for this game. It is an interesting system. It is actually, fairly basic. It is a system that has been used by games for, well, almost as long as role-playing games have been in existence. Percentile-based. Your stats give you a percentile, and you have to roll under it to succeed. How they do modifiers as far as your skills work is a little bit different. There are some other interesting mechanics to the game that we'll go over, but we're going to make our soldier for this particular game. Now, of course, this is a class-based game. There's a variety of different job tasks that you can choose from, and many of them are either guardsman responsibilities, like the heavy gunner or the weapons specialist. You also have various support classes, like the commissar, the medic, that generally start with a little bit better gear, but not as diverse a pool of experience and talents. So when you make a character for Only War, generally you are kind of angling for something that you have in mind. This isn't one where you just roll and see what falls out. You can do that, of course, but this is more of a game about building the character that you are imagining first. In this case, I'm thinking about making an operator. My game master has informed me that the game that we're going to be playing is going to be the story of a armored division. So we will have tanks. The Lehman Russ, basically the most ubiquitous tank for the Imperial Guard. It is patterned after a World War I body style with a really big, prominent tread and kind of a parallelogram-shaped arrangement. It's got a huge, massive cannon to give it some teeth. And it's going to be the centerpiece of our fighting. Our group is going to have, because of the size of our group, 2 of these things that we're going to be responsible for. And it's going to be an interesting story told on a very mobile battleground. So my character is going to be an operator who's going to drive one of these things. Ultimately, I think that it would be a useful thing, to have a skilled player character who can hopefully keep our tank out of trouble, and also somebody who can add extra skills in that aren't necessarily based around how many rounds I can put down on an enemy. This is a character that I can see having some depth and dimension outside of just, I drive the tank. So, that's what we're going to be shooting for, and I hope that you enjoy this little rundown of a very interesting role-playing game that I'm really looking forward to playing. So, shall we begin? Alright, we're ready to create our character. What we have here is an Imperial Guard approved character sheet with 2 sheets. The backside we're going to use for notes because this is going to be a short campaign and doesn't really warrant a notebook itself. A couple of features. Notice that the statistics are printed on both sides because they are often referenced. One is your kind of everyday skills selection. This would be your combat side of the sheet. So we're going to zoom in a little bit so that I can focus on outlining a couple of things. There are 9 core attributes in the game. Your ballistic skill and your weapon skill, your strength, toughness, agility, intelligence, perception, willpower, and fellowship. In Dungeons & Dragons term, this would be charisma, wisdom, your perception skill would be treated as an attribute, your intelligence, your dexterity, your constitution, your strength. This is your bonus to strike. Ballistic skill is how well you shoot. Weapon skill is how well you attack in close range. Couple of differences. Number one, all of these attributes are percentiles. So they will give you your chance of success and be modified by how skilled you are, the circumstances that you're trying to do whatever you're doing in. And also, most of these also provide some sort of a static bonus, which is equal to the tens digit of each of the numbers. So if you have an intelligence of, say, 36, the 3 can be used to modify certain skills and roles. All told, these are all percentiles, but because we are guardsmen, we're not the super soldiers that are space marines in the Warhammer universe. Our numbers are going to be relatively small. We're going to have to look for all the advantages we can get to eventually be fairly effective in the grim darkness of the 41st century. Now down here are all the various skills that we can get. It's not a huge list, quite honestly, and some of them are write-ins for what you know and how you're skilled in various other avenues. But talents and traits are certainly something that's a big part of the game. Your talents are going to be what really give you boosts in combat, different ways of fighting or expanding on your abilities. Your wounds is how much damage you can take. Insanity, well, you don't come up across nameless horrors of chaos and so on without risking going a little insane. Corruption, more of the same, getting that relative evil inside of you. Tracking your movement. And fate points are how much the universe likes you and feels that you have to live. The combat side of things keeps track of your weapon logs, how much armor you have on various parts of your body that can all be targeted or blown off if you're unlucky. Your gear that you have, psychic powers if you are a psyker, and yes, you can have those. Your comrade, who becomes kind of important in this game, and I'll explain that. And your experience. And this section on aptitudes is basically how you level up and how easy it is or how expensive it is to gain new skills, abilities, and talents. So the first thing that we have to do is figure out the attributes that we have. And we have 9 attributes. So we will roll 9 times. It's 2 10-sided dice plus 20, which should give us a range between 22 and 40 in each of our attributes. So rolling, we start out with a 10 and a 5 for 15, which is 35. That's a very nice score. And we have here a 9 and a 9. That's an 18. So that's 38. 2 nice scores. Well. And then we have a 5 and a 1. That's 26. The cosmos balances out a little bit. 8 and a 5 is 33. Again, we're adding 20 to each of these, so 10 and a 7, that's 37. Wow, this is a really good character so far. And then a 2 and a 5 is 27. Again, 7 plus 20. A 3 and a 2, 25. And 2 and an 8, 30. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then the final roll, 6 and a 7, that's 13, so 33. So 35, 38, 26, 33, 27, 37, 27, 25, 30, and 33. Also, because our characters are a little bit more important to the universe, we're a little bit better, we get to re-roll against one of our attributes, so we have to keep the new roll. So I'm going to try to beat a 5. That got me a 25. We'll try to improve that. And an 8 and a 10 is 38. That's a big jump up. Okay, so this character, definitely very strong, lots of high attributes. But remember, this is only on a human scale. This character is very, very good, but a Space Marine would still crush him in an instant. Also, he's only going to have Guardsman-type gear, so that is all relative. So, we have the general attributes to start out with. We get to choose where those go, but we're going to wait a second to choose our specialty first. We are going to be an operator. An operator is a little bit less leery of the strange technology that the Imperial Guard often employs for their compatriots. These guardsmen are often entrusted with piloting the squad's transport or other vehicles. In this case, I get a friggin' tank, which is very cool. So, we go through the classes. We had a heavy gunner. We had a medic. Operator. That's me. This is showing someone in a sentinel, which is a walking weapons platform. If your group is ground-bound, then this makes your operator quite impressive as far as a battlefield combatant. On the other hand, all the big guns are going to be pointed at you, so there's something to remember. So there's a lot of background stuff, but a couple important things to note that we're going to fill in right now is you've got this little section here with your starting aptitudes, talents, and modifiers. And these are the important things that the class of operator really kind of outlines. First of all, you get a +5 to agility. And starting aptitudes. The aptitudes are agility. Okay, put that here under aptitudes. Put agility. Ballistic skill. Because you're a shooter, you could operate the guns on your own vehicle, which is important to do. Fellowship, fieldcraft, intelligence, and tech. Okay, so your agility and ballistic skill are attributes. Your fellowship is an attribute. Intelligence is an attribute. Fieldcraft and tech are your leanings toward the skills that you'd be interested in. Alright, I filled in the basic details on what being an operator gives me. First of all, I'm trained in a couple of skills. Common lore tech, which basically allows me to recognize technological devices, try to figure out what their purpose is. That is not something you take for granted in the Warhammer 40k universe where people can be kind of dumb. Operate surface allows me to drive surface vehicles like that Sentinel that I showed earlier, but also the tank we're going to be driving in. And tech use intelligence is used for all manner of things, including repairing broken technological items and making some things work, like cogitators, which is what they call computers. And it is a kind of a bizarre arcane science that is highly ritualized. Somebody who's good at tech use is going to know all of the prescribed prayers and rituals in order to make everything work, maintain technological devices and things like that. So my character is already quite good at that. As far as talents and traits, I have technical knock, which can allow me basically by knowing the right mechanism to quickly unjam a weapon that has been jammed. That could be important for our main cannon. Most las weapons will never jam, but some things do, and this is the ability that you use to clear that. My character is trained in las weapons. Las is laser, of course, which are the most common weapons and the ones most associated with the Imperial Guard. They're not very powerful, but they're very reliable. And then weapon training in low tech, which is all of your melee weapons and more primitive weapons like bows and blunderbusses and such. On top of that, I also have some gear to start out with. We have an Auspex, which is basically your scanner. It can detect hazardous gas, energy emissions, biological readings, and things like that. If you think tricorder from Star Trek, you're on the right path. It has a range out to about 50 meters. It's a pretty good range. It can be blocked by thick materials, but for the most part, it's really good for helping with your perception. I have a common mind impulse unit, which is a piece of cybernetics that have been jammed into my brain so that my character can jack in, literally with a cord, plug into many devices used in the Imperium, including hopefully our tank, and then I would be able to control it using my mind, which gives me a flat bonus to do anything with it. I can also operate multiple systems throughout. So it gives a flat 10% bonus when I'm trying to do anything that I'm jacked into, which is nice. I have a combat tool, which is kind of like the Swiss Army knife of the age. It is a collection of tools that have been crammed into one unit and gives you a bonus whenever you try to use tech use to repair or alter something. I have a data slate, which is basically a tablet that can store data and text, pictures, Can also do some limited recording. It's kind of nice. And a last cutter, which is kind of like a welder, a cutting torch. It's heavy. It is capable of cutting through metal. In a pinch, you could also use it to cut somebody. It does a tremendous amount of damage, but it's very difficult to use that way. And generally, that's not its purpose, although it's undoubtedly been used for that purpose numerous times. Okay, so we have those abilities. Also, we have our aptitudes. This is what our character is quite good at because he's an operator. In terms of attributes, things related to his agility, ballistic skill, fellowship, and intelligence, he's going to have a very easy time learning things from those attributes and leveling up those attributes to the point where it will cost less experience than if he was not. Also, his areas of interest are fieldcraft and tech. Those also will have a bonus in them. The leveling up system is unique to only war, so we'll briefly touch on that. Because you actually do level up and pick up a few talents based on those abilities. A couple of things that also you can do. You have a comrade. He is your person who helps you out, sticks by your side, and if you are about to die from some horrible attack, sometimes it's your comrade who dies instead of you. Kind of gives you a little bit of a blade of armor in a way. But my comrade can be used to enhance I can advance them. As a gunner, while I'm driving a multi-passenger vehicle, my comrade can jump in and man one of the guns. I can spend my turn driving a vehicle, but I can also take a ranged attack on whatever gun my comrade is manning as if I was there myself. So basically, this allows me to multitask. And put that out, if my vehicle catches fire, my comrade can jump into action, and if the comrade is inside the affected vehicle, he can spend an action to end any fire effect currently affecting the vehicle, which can be nice. Fire is a nasty threat to a vehicle. They also have all these lists of different advances that they recommend for the operator, and it's a good list. Different weapon skills, weapon techs that you can upgrade, including most of the attributes that you are basically favored towards, as well as a lot of useful skills like dodge. Dodge can be very useful. Operating surface vehicles, clearly that's going to be a priority. Tech use, and then some of the talents that are very useful for an operator, including hotshot pilot and rapid reload. All of them give you special abilities. So the next thing that we do is we go to page 100, which is talking about wounds, fate points, and spending experience. There really isn't a great deal to making these characters than generally come up with something, spend some points, and you're ready to go. Oh, one other thing that's important, my wounds are equal to 6 plus 1d5. 1d5 is a 10-sided die cut in half. So if I rolled a 9, 9 divided by 2 is 4.5, which rounds up to 5. So it's 6 plus 5 is 11. Because I'm going to be coming from a hive world, which has already been decreed by the Game Master, I lose 1 point. So I have 10 wounds. And currently I have 10. I have the 10 wounds. I'm uninjured to start. Also, I roll for fate points. Fate points are your get out of jail free. If you sustain lethal damage, your fate points can be used. I rolled a 4, which gives me 1 fate point. Most people only have 1 fate point. Some people are lucky and start with a few more. So, fate points, I have 1. 1 chance to survive, and if you do take lethal damage and would die from an attack, you spend a fate point, your character will survive the encounter, but he will probably be horribly injured, may lose something in that. Okay, so starting experience, because we are a guardsman character, we start with 600 experience. We'll just write that down. Now remember those aptitudes that we had? This is what that's going to mean. These are all the various aptitudes, some of which I don't have. Everybody has access to the general aptitude, but after that there are a lot of characteristic-based aptitudes. Ours are agility, ballistic skill, fellowship, and intelligence. Again, we can easily raise those, or at least cheaply raise those. Then after that it's fieldcraft and tech. We do not have access to offense, finesse, defense, psycher certainly, knowledge, leadership, or social. Doesn't mean we can't learn those, it's just it's going to cost us more as a result. So, we look at these. Now, we rolled pretty good stats, all in all. It's time to start putting those stats into their places. So we have to assign a 35, a 38, a 26, 33, 37, 27, 38, 30, and 33. Well, the one we're going to use the most is piloting, operating surface. That is based on agility. So we are going to put our best stat in that, which is a 38. We get a +5 because we're an operator. That brings it up to a 43, which is pretty darn good. When we have our Mind Impulse unit linked into the vehicle we're driving, we actually operate at a 53 skill. So we have better than average chance of doing your everyday tasks, which is good. We have another 38 to add, and if we're going to work on being the best tanker we can, we probably want to put that into ballistic skills so we're not wasting the Emperor's ammunition any more than is possible. So that's a good match there. That'll get rid of our two highest numbers. We can also look at our lowest number, the 26. Where could we put that? Well, our character, we don't, generally the more common ones in an Only War game, our fellowship, certainly, and oftentimes intelligence. But our character wants to be good at tech and other things that are intelligence-based. So we don't want to dump out our intellect. What we're going to do instead is we're going to have our low willpower. Our character is going to have vices, and he's not going to have a lot of resistance to that. It also may be difficult for him mentally to survive some of the horrors that he's going to face, but that can also be served to basically define his character from then on. Alright, so next we have a 27 as our next lowest. We could probably, since we're going to be in a tank all the time, we can probably put that into our toughness. And that's a dangerous thing. If we have to get out of the tank and expose ourselves to danger, having a low toughness can be dangerous in this game. But we're going to do it. Because we want to be fairly likable. We're going to put that 30 in fellowship. We're pretty average for heroic guardsmen, which is better than your average person, but, you know, I'm not going to blow people away with my personality too often. We're going to have a high intelligence. We're going to take that 37 and put it there. That'll help our tech use. That'll help us repairing the tank. We have strength and weapon skill. My character's got two 33s and a 35. So we'll put a 33 in weapon skill and a 33 in strength. And for perception, which can be very nice, we'll put that 35. Okay, so those are our attributes as of right now. So, looking at advances, things that we could do, they have different tables based on what you're improving. If you're improving a characteristic, like, say, our ballistic skill, because we have an aptitude for it, ballistic skill, it has a secondary aptitude based on a non-characteristic aptitude. Ballistic skill is finesse, which is not our specialty. We would have then one aptitude in common if we wanted to raise ballistic skill. You can either have 0, 1, or 2. And the more you have, the less it's going to cost you to raise something. So for instance, if we had 2 in a simple advance, which is the very first increase of a characteristic, it would only cost us 100 experience. So out of the ones we have, ballistic skill, we would only have 1 match. For the first increase, which would give it a +5, it's going to cost us, because we have 1 aptitude, 250 experience out of the 600 that we have. That would then give us, however, a ballistic skill of 43. So, a pretty good shot. Looking at the other ones we have, agility. That is also finesse-based. So again, it's going to cost us a little more to increase our agility. Our fellowship, social. Again, we only have 1 parry on that. Intelligence, knowledge. It's going to cost us more to increase any of our attributes, which is fine. You know, increasing your core attributes is a major investment. But we're not going to get any cheap or easy, unfortunately. But we look at skills. Skills are something that can give us a more narrow focus and bonus, but can cost a lot less. And ours are fieldcraft and tech. We want operation, which is based off of agility. So we have not only the skill, we have agility and fieldcraft. So those are in common. We have 2 aptitudes related to that. And it is known right now to go up to trained in it, which means we make all of our rolls with a known trained. That would give us a +10. That would cost us 200 experience, which we want to do. So we will take another level in. Will bring us a +10 in operate. So out of those 600, we're down to 400. Operate. Surface +10. So we're really good at driving it. We can still get better, but that's down the road. So that's 1 skill we have. Let's see. Tech. Well, tech use is based off of intelligence and tech, and that's what we use to fix the tank. So we should probably do that. Along the way, I'm imagining how this character could have developed these skills. He's not a member of the Machine Cult, which is an organization in the Imperium. If you don't know a great deal about the world of, or the universe of the Warhammer 40k, I do highly recommend doing a bit of reading. Some of the stuff will make far more sense. As we're just covering how to create the character, I'm not going to go into dramatic details. But we do have 2 pairings, 2 aptitudes for tech use, so we will buy that for 200 as well. That leaves us with 200 experience. So that's good, and that leaves us with 200. Now, talent advances. We should get a talent. The game recommends, from our class, there's a couple of good ones. Armor Monger, which we need an intelligence of 35, tech use, and trade armor, which we do not have, so we can't do that. Hard Target requires an agility of 50. We don't have that. Hotshot Pilot, agility 40 and operate any. We do have that, so we could look at that. Lightning Reflexes, that's talent. Rapid Reaction, which we qualify for. Rapid Reload, looks like we qualify. Sprint. Target Selection, we don't have the ballistic skill for that. And Weapon Tech, we do have tech use +10 and intelligence of 40. So, all right, let's take a look at some of these. Weapon Tech sounds fun. So now we're going to look through the various things, and I will explain to you what my choice was. It's going to be a matter of, studying the different ones to see what advantages they have. Unless Weapon Tech is so awesome, then I'm just going to take this right off the bat. The character has developed an extensive understanding of advanced technological weapons and their functions, opening them up and learning what makes them tick, hum, or click. Once per combat, the character can enhance his weapon, increasing its firepower and deadliness for 1 round per combat encounter. A weapon personally wielded by the character from the Melta, Plasma, Power, or Exotic category increases its damage and penetration by amount equal to his intelligence bonus. Simply put, I can't really use any of those weapons. So at the moment, that one doesn't make a great deal of sense. And I can only get tier 1 at this point anyhow. So that's a no. So we are looking for something that uses our various attributes. And it has to be tier 1. So we should look at the tier 1 talents. Right here. Okay. So we have intelligence, fieldcraft, and tech. Intelligence and tech would be technical knock, which we already have. Intelligence, social, nope. Not a lot of intelligence-based talents. Let's go for agility-based. Agility and fieldcraft, rapid reload. That sounds fun. That's probably the one we'll take if we have to deal with the tank. Rapid reload. The firing ranges and weapon drill chambers are the character's constant abode. Hours of reloading constant magazines or power cells mean that he or she can replace them without thinking or looking. Character halves all reload times rounding down, thus a half-action reload becomes a free action, a full action becomes a half-action, and so on. That could be very useful. Could be. Especially when you're inside of a tank. I'll be driving it most of the time, but if we're standing in one spot and shooting, I could probably reload and help out the whole group. I think we'll do that. Rapid reload. It costs 200 because it's tier 1. But I have 2 matching aptitudes for it. So that will be my last thing, is rapid reload, which will be very good for the tank I'm in. We can fire twice as often. Alright, those are my starting skills and advances. So that helps. Next, we give the characters some life. We give them names. Now, because my character is going to be a nobleborn. He's going to be a hotshot kid who loved driving everything he could, and he got sent to the Imperial Guard to basically get him out of his parents' hair. So, in that case, we're going to take a high Gothic name. They give some nice examples here. I think I am going to take, however, Holt. Godwin, Fortunatus. I like Septimus. And as a last name, Vitreus. Septimus Vitreus. I like that name. Sounds very aristocratic, I think. So that's good. His appearance and everything. He's not going to be particularly tall. I'm going to say 5'9", which is good inside of a tank, honestly. He's not a weakling, so we'll say he's 160 pounds. We'll say he spends a lot of time out on motorcycle-like grav sleds, so tanned, blonde, long hair, green eyes. So he's going to be a rich kid's son who basically was a biker until he got kicked out, probably for blowing up vehicles, often. Okay, demeanor. I like to roll for demeanor. Let the dice decide what I'm going to play rather than me assigning something. So 87. These are all the personality traits. Not so much of an alignment, just a guide for what your character would be like. Steely. This character has a piercing gaze and is happy to let it do the talking for him most of the time. His squad mates are exceptionally careful around him for fear of his dark glare. All right. Steely. Should make his last name, or his first name, Dan. He's Steely Dan. Okay, so that's that. Now I come up with a comrade. So, generating comrades occurs during character creation or when they need to be restocked. Remember, they can die easily. You roll once on an example names and to generate the name, and a demeanor to figure out the personality. That's it. You don't need their stats because they're never going to do anything significant. They're just there to tag along with you and die in your stead. So in this case, my comrade's name is going to be Private. And we're going to say he's going to be a low Gothic. So 08 Court. Private Court. And his status, his demeanor. Now, he doesn't have any special abilities until I buy character advances for him, which I'm planning on doing. 85. Is he also stealing? 85 Smooth. This character is more refined than many of his squad mates. Most either admire this trait or mock him for it. He is smooth. So I'm kind of like, Yeah, he's going to be more like Iceman from Top Gun. It's just going to be cool. But he still does my bidding. And if he dies, I'll feel a little worse for it. So I have no experience left. I spent it all. Okay. So, after all of that, the rest of it describes all the stuff that you have in the game and describes the skills and describes the traits. Now we actually have to go back to the information that the Game Master would have given me about the regiment that we're in. Because that all has a big impact on your character. The planet that you're from and the nature of your regiment has a lot to do with your doctrines and what your character will end up being good at. We come from a hive world. Where I am highborn. I get a bonus to Fellowship, Intelligence, or Weapon Skill, +3. Well, definitely Intelligence. This is why I did everything in pencil, because these numbers can all be erased. So we're going to have a 40 Intelligence. And also +3 to either Fellowship or Weapon Skill. Weapon Skill is basically if you were dueling. You might have had the privileged lifestyle where you actually spent your time dueling. And my Fellowship is only a 30. My Weapon Skill is a 33. I will try very hard not to have to fight in hand-to-hand combat. But I'm pretty strong. We'll put it into Weapon Skill. 36. Okay. All highborn start with Common Law Administratum, who is the organization that does all the bookkeeping and record keeping of the Imperium. Inquiry and Linguistics High Gothic. If you would think that Low Gothic is like English, High Gothic is like Latin. It's the language of nobles. Although many of them can get by on some Low Gothic to talk to everyone else too. While highborn characters have learned to speak Low Gothic, they have no reason to learn to read and write the language of the lowly masses. Because of this, they do not start with the linguistics low Gothic skill creation, though they're still capable of engaging in verbal communication, and that doesn't require a skill test. So we have fluency. But we may end up picking up that skill. I believe it's really cheap to do so at some point. Duty and honor. The highborn hold themselves to standards of behavior and etiquette. Their upbringing distinguishes them from the lowborn troops that make up the common bulk. Highborn characters suffer a -10 penalty to charm, inquiry, and deceive tests made to interact with characters who are not highborn. Great. Basically, it's the difficulty in relating to people who are there because they have to be. Highborn are usually there because they choose to be. Maybe it's their honor, maybe it's to pump up the prestige of their family. It can be a variety of reasons. However, they gain a +10 bonus to all those same skill tests when dealing with the nobility and other high authority in formal situations. So if I deal with other highborn or command, I would use something like that. Interesting. And a lot of command tend to go up into the duty and honor segment of going into officer school. So most likely many of the higher up officers I deal with will be highborn. That'll help. Abundant resources. They're almost universally wealthy and well-connected, able to draw upon resources when seeking new equipment. A squad from a highborn regiment starts with 10 extra logistics rating. So that's good. That's if we need extra supplies. That helps. The finest tutors, years of study under a wide range of military instructors and traditional connections to other military dynasties, have prepared each and every highborn for life in Imperial Guard. Highborn characters start with one of the following talents: air of authority or pure nobility. We're going to start with pure nobility. That means that nobles will recognize me as one of them and give a bonus to deal with them, which could be useful. But -1 starting wound, which we already took into account. Both Hive World, where we come from, would have the -1 starting wound, and Highborn, the noble from the same world, would have the same penalty. So that's good to know. My character is a little bit more competent now, which is good. Our commanding officer, it has already been determined, is a maverick. He is something of a rebel, regarded as ill-disciplined, etc., etc. We have resistance to fear because of him, because we love our commander. Although we have not met him yet in the game. So we resist fear, which is probably going to be really useful, considering what we may end up having to go up against. Training and doctrines, I don't think he sorted those out yet, so we'll wait on that. But these are basically different things, bonuses that you get. For example, if we have close order drill, which I'm pretty sure is one of them that we can get, the regiment is trained long and hard to operate in close formations, fighting shoulder to shoulder with their comrades. These close formations can respond quickly with overwhelming force, moving as a single entity. It gives you talents, combat formation, or double team, which are talents. So you can get those because of your doctrine of your unit, which is cool. There are special equipment doctrines, which I'm pretty sure we don't get. Things like demolitions, where we'd all have extra explosives, or warrior weapons, where we'd have stuff for primitive weapons, low-tech stuff. Standard regimental kit. All right, we're done noting the gear that we have, so we can outline. Outside of the things that we got because we are an operator, the whole unit gets 2 uniforms. They are black and gray and white, I believe. No, black, gray, and green for the regiment colors. We have poor weather clothes, so we can survive in Arctic conditions. We have an axe. He said a tomahawk-like weapon is kind of the traditional weapon of our regiment, and that's fine. It could be very useful as a tool as well as possibly a weapon. An entrenching tool for digging in. Of course, I'm going to use my tank as an entrenching tool sometimes, I suspect. A flak cloak, that is our personal armor. It protects the arms, legs, and body.
We have a rucksack that is chemical resistant and waterproof. Basic tools, just your basic little kit of tools to help with all sorts of things, including repairing the tank. We have rechargeable lamp, a grooming kit, good for personal stuff, personal tags, the Imperial Guardsman's primer. One of our players actually has a physical copy of the Guardsman's primer. It's hilarious. A lot of propaganda to try to allay the fears of the Guardsmen who are going up against some pretty nasty horrors, and the useful information on there is kind of sketchy. But it does have a few life-saving techniques in terms of first aid and stuff for a person who's never had to do anything like that. So there is some useful information sprinkled through. 2 weeks of rations of actually pretty good food. Our unit is very well stocked. My weapon is a last pistol, a laser pistol. It's not the most effective weapon by a long shot, and I have 2 charge packs for that. I have also filled in the armor. The flat cloak gives me 3 points of armor to the parts that it covers: the left arm, the right leg, the left leg, and the body. So in addition to my toughness, which is 27, you take the tens digit of each of the attributes that gives you a bonus when applied to something. So I get a +2 because of my toughness of 27. So I have 2 + 3 is 5 points of protection. That's damage taken right off of the top of anything that doesn't ignore armor from anything that I take. So that's covered. And my head has, I have no helmet, so it's just my toughness, 2 points for my head. If I get shot in the head, I'm down. Pretty likely. Now, as far as weapons, I filled in my weapon statistics too. Starting with the last pistol. It's a pistol. It only does 1d10 + 2 damage. Not a tremendous amount, but with a lucky shot you can sometimes do some damage. Type energy. It has 0 penetration. Good weapons can get through armor. Laser weapons don't do that very well, so anything's armor is going to protect pretty fully. Range of 30 meters, not very good range. Rate of fire single shot. It can also be fired semi-automatic for 2 shots per round. Clip holds 30 shots, and reload for it is half a round. Because I have rapid reload, I can freely swap clips if I run out of juice. So with my 2 clips, I effectively have 60 shots of firing. My axe, there isn't technically an axe in there, so I just use the sword stats because I figure it's fairly close. I could do 1d10 + 3 damage. Rending, which is cutting and tearing. Again, no penetration. It actually does more damage than my last pistol if somebody gets up and takes the axe to the face. The entrenching tool is not listed again as a weapon, so I assumed it's an improvised weapon, which does 1d10 - 2. Because my character is fairly strong with a 33 strength, I do 1d10 + 1 damage. Again, rending. That's a weapon of last resort. And I do have a last cutter, which can be used as a weapon, so if I have to do that, it is a heavy weapon, which I'm not skilled in, so I'm going to be using half of my weapon skill for that, which is not good. But if I hit, I do 2d10 + 16 damage, and a penetration of 10. I can cut through just about any armor. So if I have to cut something off of my tank, this is what I would choose to use. Not something I would choose to use in a straight-up fight, however. Hopefully my character doesn't get in any straight-up fights, because my armor is bad, my resistance is pretty feeble, and I'm decent at it, but not fantastic. So that is the sum of my character, all the different things that I can do, and as I said, the biggest thing that I can do is drive my tank, get people up into position, and get out with my tank intact. And with that, we have a fairly finished character. They're just the details of going through our introduction to the other characters, but all the stats are there, abilities are there. He is ready to go into the battlefield. So, we have our operator. Is it a good character? Well, yes. He's got very fine stats. We've come up with an interesting story for him, a reason for him to be there. Again, he's a kind of a disgraced noble who is going to the Imperial Guard to follow his passion of driving, fast vehicles. In this case, a tank, which isn't fast, but it's certainly impressive enough.
He's not very well equipped. We're going to have to look for ways to try to improve equipment. One thing to bear in mind, that is a stock character. All of those things that he's got are all the things that he carries with him all the time. During particular missions, he may be assigned additional gear, including the tank that he'll be driving, and whatever else he might get. Even though his personal armament is quite weak, a last pistol isn't going to scare very many things. Honestly, this is kind of chunky for a last pistol. This is actually very similar to a small pattern bolt pistol. Again, this looks like this could have been right out of a Warhammer 40k character. Very easy to make for cosplay for a small line bolt pistol. But yeah, he's a fine character. He'd make a great addition to the team. His affluence would help get better requisition. His steely demeanor would help people to take him seriously. And he'd just basically have his expectations. I drive the tank, nobody gets in my way, and I'm your best choice for driving it, which is probably true. He'd be an important enough person that most people aren't going to give him a great deal of guff. He is not going to be one who is going to be likely to break the rules. He is there to drive the tank. In a fight, he will do whatever it takes to help his team get out on top, of course, because he wants to live, and the more of his teammates that are around, they help him live. Ultimately, he's got a direction to go in, too. He's going to work to make his comrade better, that one that allows him to fire a gun as well. Well, at the moment, we've got a large crew, so they're going to be filling up the gun emplacements and things, but sometimes they'll probably get out of the tank. In that case, it'll be nice to have my character being able to man one gun and my comrade being able to man another, be able to cover them better. As far as his gear goes, there's probably some individual things that we'll probably get to, like grenades or other kind of tools, but right now my character is pretty well stocked as far as all the things that he can do. He can fulfill his job well. He's got all the tech tools to repair the tank and to keep it up and running, as well as interfacing with it. He's got a cyber implant, which is kind of something to... All of these operators are given that as a matter of course, cybernetically enhanced to make them better at driving tanks, and so they can actually feel the tank around them and control it with their minds. That's pretty stunning for our assumption of what being in this military unit is like. He probably didn't have any choice in that if he didn't have it beforehand, and I suspect he probably would have, because as I said, he's a speed freak. He would like to control vehicles with his head. As far as the talents and things that he has, he's going to have to develop quite clearly. If he survives a couple of sessions, he can get some new talents that might give him more survivability or effectiveness. He also is in a good place to get several skill advances to spread out his interests in other areas if he wants, or to double down and look for the talents that'll help make him more effective at what we're doing in the game. I generally take characters in this kind of game organically. If a certain skill or talent would have been useful in a situation we found ourselves in, that's the one that he's going to be after. Not kind of going off in an esoteric direction because I had an idea for the character. So we'll see what happens as we play him. But as far as a character that's alive and viable in this world of grim darkness, that's the situation I'm going to find myself in with this character. So hopefully you enjoyed this walk through character creation and see some of the strength and flexibility of this system. Unfortunately, Fantasy Flight Games no longer has rights to the Warhammer 40k line, so it is a dead system. But there was quite a bit of material that was put out, and all of it is quite high quality. Great art. The organization, as I said, of the books are quite good, easy to find information. There's a lot of fluff that's involved there, so if you haven't read a great deal of the Warhammer 40k, just reading through those will give you a good primer into what the universe is like. I would, however, say that it's probably best if you read the various books or kind of indulged in the wargame a little bit to understand the universe. It might frame and put the thing into a better context, but a person could walk into the game with a bunch of people who already know and not feel too lost, because this is a war story. This is a story about people caught in one of the most horrible circumstances that people can find themselves in. And there's really nothing to take away from there that doesn't work. Your character will probably be facing horrible situations. There may be some lighthearted moments, and should be. It should not be always grim, 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 grim. You're almost dead, you're almost dead, you're almost dead. There should be things to lighten the mood, to celebrate that your characters survive when they do. But it's a tough game. It's a hard game to not play. It's relatively simple. Again, roll percentile dice for almost everything and see what your number matches up with according to the stat that you're rolling against. But again, the circumstances are horrendous. You're usually going to be outgunned, outmanned, possibly. The Imperial Guards, the whole regime is one snafu after the other. Incompetencies in leadership, incompetencies in the bureaucracy. You're just a very, very, very tiny, tiny piece in the machine. And if you're lost, it's really of no consequence to your supervisors and those who fill out the books. You might not even be a dash on the tally chart. So, grim, very dark. But in that, you can celebrate some excellent roleplay. So thank you again. I hope you've enjoyed this, found it useful. If you like the system, there's still tons of these books out in various game stores. It's not hard to find Warhammer 40k books. They're a little expensive. But as I said, so dense with so much fluff, and the system works pretty well. So thank you very much. Hopefully next time we'll see you again when we do another one of these Character Witnesses. Thank you, and farewell.